Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm sitting in today with the Theatre Director, Janet Bixler, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming presentation on August 16th and 17th from 7:30 to 9 p.m. It's called Stand Up, Speak Out, the 6 Degrees of MLK. So we wanted to talk much more with Janet about this production. Janet, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
We're also being joined by Nightly News reporter, Brianna McCoy. Brianna is going to be a tech during the show, so she's going to help talk about a little bit of the behind-the-scenes things that are going on with the production. Brianna, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, Janet, it seems almost every term we have you in to talk about what you have going on down in the theater. First and foremost, I want to look back to some of the previous events that you've had. Can you just refresh our audience with some of the events that you've been doing in and out of the theater in 2018 so far?
Well, the most recent production the Capital Blue Cross Theater produced was Swords and Shakespeare, Scenes of Conflict and Combat, where we performed it in the beautiful Student Fellowship Amphitheater here on campus. And Brianna was one of our actors, and she was phenomenal, doing 2 different scenes from Shakespeare's 2 different plays, where she fought with a broadsword and where she did a lot of sexual innuendo, slaps and tickles in another play. So we had that. That was amazing. It was a catered event one night for the alumni, very well attended. We had about 70 people the first night outside watching the scenes from all the different Shakespearean plays, and then we had 50 for the special catered event, and it was so well received.
Let me ask you, what are the challenges, and certainly, Brianna, you can talk about this as well, what are the challenges with doing an outside venue? This is the first time we've ever really used, I know you've done other things outdoors, but nothing of this scale or magnitude. And so what were some of the issues or maybe things that are a little bit different than doing it inside of the theater?
Well, the weather. We had no idea if it was going to be beautiful. I had started planning this theater production a year out. Knowing June weather, I was very optimistic we would get good weather, but I still wasn't sure. And we had one rehearsal that was completely rained out at the very last minute, where we were supposed to be rehearsing down in the fellowship area, and we had to move it really quickly into the conference center. And we did have the conference center booked just in case we needed to move the whole event down there, but thankfully we didn't. Another challenge in doing... Are you talking about outside events?
Yes.
Was the noise. Because we worked with our fight choreographer, Dan Burke, who has a company, Safe Violence by Dan Burke. And he was very strict about teaching the actors and the combatants how to use their voice in reference to the noise from the highway and from 81. Because depending on the cloud coverage, if it was really low, it was actually going to keep the sound with us.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, so they had to really be conscious of making sure they were projecting, because they all had lines of dialogue. Sometimes while they were fighting, most of the times they would fight and then talk and fight and then talk. And they were all over the space. They weren't necessarily like Brianna and Tita, when they performed their scene from Taming the Shrew, they were pretty up close and personal with the audience. But when we did the Romeo and Juliet scene with Dalen as Romeo, Dalen Davis, and Adrienne, they were battling quite a distance from the audience, and they were fighting and talking at the same time. And so the body is using the breath in very different ways. So they had to learn to project their voice while fighting and while being aware of the noise from the highway.
Brianna, I have a question for you. You were obviously one of the all-stars of the show. Is this the first time that you'd ever really done anything like this before? I mean, I know you'd been in other theatrical productions, but nothing quite on this scale, and certainly probably nothing outside something like this. What were your thoughts as you think back to the experience?
Well, I want to agree with Bixler about the space and having all the background noise is difficult, because as an actor, you are supposed to project so that everyone can hear you. But since we're always usually in the theater, it's always a small space, so I don't have to really, elevate my voice as loud as usual. So that was difficult, and that was definitely a challenge for me, even though I'm naturally loud. And then there's the problem with the spacing. I'm used to a small theater and not having to utilize all of my space. So when we were in the amphitheater, it was kind of hard to, keep it together and having to use all different opportunities so that the whole space is filled. So
wasn't it you that came out of the wooded area?
Yeah.
And then so you actually kind of used the scene, the scenery as sort of a prop. I thought that was very interesting and unique. What was your thoughts about that particular scene?
How did I feel about that? Was my first scene too. It was strange to me because one, I was in the bushes and I didn't like that.
I was going to say, didn't you have to hide in the bushes for a little while?
Like right in the tree too. So I was with the little birdies and everything right before I came out. But it was difficult because one, I'm not used to being behind all the bushes and everything. So it was hard to hear when my next cue was. So you really had to be focused and, listen out for when it was time for you to, come on, let's go, jump right in. It's your turn. It was difficult, but I did it. I did great.
Well, Janet, I have to tell you, I attended, and I have to tell you that not only myself and Jackie, and we love everything that you've done. Jackie's my wife. We love everything that you've done. This was the most unique, not only because of the catered option, but it was really had a different feel in the audience. It was a little bit more laid back, but once showtime, because I think we were all loose, we were having some, a beverage, or we were having something to eat. But then when it started, it was like you could hear a pin drop and you had everybody's full attention. And I really hope that in the future we are, as a school, but really more importantly as a theater, that you are able to use that space much more. And I really thought it was awesome that you used it in that way, because it never really had been done anything like that before. So certainly we appreciate that. But I do want to spend the rest of the podcast on the upcoming production. Again, just wanted to remind you, this is going to be a 2-night show, August 16th and 17th. It's going to be 7 o'clock doors and 7:30 the performance will start, and it's Stand Up, Speak Out, 6 Degrees of MLK. The first question that I have for you, Janet, is what and how did this come to be? Obviously we are in a time of strife in this country, to say the least, politically. As far as with our current president, it's one of those either love him or hate him type things. Was our modern culture and where we are in the tension in this country, was that part of the reason that you wanted to do this production?
Yes, but not the primary reason. So Adrienne Thoman, who is the producer for the show, is also our activities director here at Central Penn College. And ever since Adrienne started working at Central Penn, she has always done some type of production around social justice. And in the past, she has produced the Vagina Monologues. And then we worked together last year on a production called A Memory, a Monologue, Rant, and a Prayer, which was a compilation of pieces put together by Eve Ensler, who created the Vagina Monologues. And so in that tradition, Adrienne wanted to continue into this year, 2018, to do a social justice piece. I had said, well, we've kind of tapped the Eve Ensler stuff, so we need to search for new work to do. And it's interesting. There's a lot of theater pieces out there that speak to social justice, but we have a lot of unique circumstances at our school. So the big staged formal productions of other plays are not always possible because of our time constraints and our space. So I'm always looking for pieces that can be adapted into our space and our time constraints. We were looking to do a staged reading of the Laramie Project, which is the story of Matthew Shepard, who was a young gay man who was brutally tortured and murdered. That show is about a group of actors portraying all the many different people that are involved in the story of Matthew Shepard. So it's really a multiple casting. So you need actors that are very versatile. We were thinking of doing a stage reading of that. It just so happens Theater Harrisburg last season did a full production of the Laramie Project. So as a theater, when you're looking to attract an audience, you also have to think, well, what's been done in the area that people will come out and see? So we labeled our production Stand Up, Speak Out, knowing we were going to fill it in with something about social justice, and we were going to create it. So our thought was we would go back into history and we would find famous speeches by well-known people where they saw wrong, took action, and made it right. So maybe a speech by Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, women of the women's suffragists movement, the civil rights movement. But then we got to talking about, well, that's a history event, But what about currently? So then we said, well, maybe we can find writings by present day people doing the work of social justice and get their permission to use actors here at our school to read their firsthand accounts. Well, that is a bear in and of itself, to find the writings and then to get the permission. And then I was like, oh, I kind of forgot. I do storytelling. I host a storytelling event called Untitled, where Caitlin Cope is here on our campus and her husband and Douglas Weaver. We run this organization called Untitled, which is a storytelling event 4 times hosted at Zero Day Brewery, where we have a theme for the night and then we gather local people in the community to tell personal true stories on that theme. And I said to Adrienne, why don't we do that? Why don't we reach out to the community here at school and in Harrisburg and York and Lancaster to see if there are people currently, our neighbors, doing the work of social justice. And that's how we came to create a night of theatrical storytelling where the audience will hear a variety of different stories of their community members talking about a time when they saw wrong, took action, and made it right, either because they are a member of a disenfranchised community or they are an advocate for a disenfranchised community.
When you first put the word out that you were looking for stories like this, I was thinking about something that had happened to me probably about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, now that I think about it. And it had to do with my son. My son has special needs, and I've probably shared this story with you before. And it had to do, the kid loves, now he's 18, right? Now he is. At the time he was 16. The kid loves to go trick-or-treating, okay? And when he was 16, I decided that I was going to take him out just around my neighborhood. We weren't going to go out and do anything special because he was getting older. And I had somebody make a comment to him and to me when he went to their door and, knocked on the door and asked for candy, comment something like, "Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?" And that was something that, now I can't say that I necessarily acted on that and necessarily made it a right, but what I instead did was I wrote a blog piece on my blog, and the whole point of me trying to do that was to say, the next time you have somebody to come to your door on Halloween, don't judge them based on age, don't judge them based on their costume, you just give them candy and move on, because that really hurt me. Now he didn't hear it, or he doesn't care, or didn't register. But to me, that was upsetting because I knew he was too old to be trick-or-treating. And what is too old to be trick-or-treating? I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. I knew he was too old to go trick-or-treating, but the problem is he didn't. And he wanted to go, and he had done it every year, and he loved it. But the fact that there are still people out there that are so concerned with how old somebody is, whether you're going to give them a piece of candy or not, was very upsetting to me. And I suppose I thought about this as, I think parents of special needs children are a disenfranchised community. Maybe not in the same way as many of the other people, but in the way that I could relate, is that I had somebody judging my son just based on the simple fact that he was a little taller than the other kids. But to me, I wanted to say to that person, listen, this means so much to this kid. You have no idea what it means to him. And for you to say that is just, it's ruining one of the last, moments of childhood that he has. And so I was thinking about trying to talk to you about that, and I never got to quite develop it and to have a part in the show. But I am glad that you're bringing all kinds of different perspectives in here, because I do think that inside all of us, we represent somebody in some small way that might be disenfranchised. Can you talk about some of the other people who are involved, or some of the other groups that are being represented here?
Right. And this, to actually finish your first question, because you said what inspired this theatrical piece, was it the climate of our society today? Yes. That is the second part. Because we are now living in a time of such strife and such polar extremes of what is just and fair and equal, and this is all happening 50 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's time to look at how the work of social justice, looking at his work during the civil rights movement and the Poor People's Campaign, looking at his work 50 years ago and back then, how has it evolved? How has it grown? So we have people telling stories that speak to a variety of communities where the members are disenfranchised. Our show will begin with sharing stories of immigration and those that can't speak English and the disenfranchised of that, and how people are working to provide them a voice. We'll move into stories from the community of previously incarcerated. Two of our storytellers were previously incarcerated, and now they both run very strong nonprofits that help to break the chains and to stop the recidivism. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have used that word.
Recidivism.
Thank you, Paul Miller. And also to help transition those that were once incarcerated into the mainstream society. We have stories coming from the field of restorative justice, where people have committed a crime and the perpetrator and the victim come together, and through mediation, they are allowed to have conversation and communication and offer forgiveness and be able to repay for the crime that they committed. We have stories coming to us that speak and advocate for those that are homeless or in the transition of once being homeless and finding a home of their own. We have stories that two mothers are speaking about the justice that they were not given, having to fight for their own protection, and then looking to the system and asking the system, why are you not standing up for me? I am the victim. My child is the victim. And then we end with stories of the LGBTQ. Two of the storytellers are gay men sharing very different stories of being disenfranchised as gay men and then standing up in their own lives to share what it means, like see me for who I am, and creating social justice by conversation and by living their truth.
I think that you have a very nice cross-section of different groups that are being represented here. Well, Brianna, I want to come over to you. You are involved in this show. You are going to be one of the tech people. So can we just get maybe a little bit... I know that you're in the middle of rehearsals right now, and you're getting ready for the show. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you do and your contribution to the show?
Well, I recently started a playlist to go along with the show. So as Victor said, there's many different stories, very diverse stories. So we wanted to make the playlist the same. So we have many different songs, I put together different genres in music from different eras so that we can have that diverse set of music. So we have Carole King, Simon and Garfunkel, to artists like Kanye West in his early work, and Nas, and we have like new artists that we have now today, Meek Mills. So, to put all that together and to use all different genres and make it more diverse that way, I think did a great job.
Yeah, well, of course. So you're saying music is going to be a part of the show,
Yes.
and a big part of the show to sort of set the stage for each of the individual speakers. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. What does it mean to you, before I go back to Janet with one final question, what does it mean to you to be a part of the Central Penn Players and be a part... You're the president of the Central Penn Players, correct?
Yes, I am.
What does it mean to you to be a president of the Central Penn Players and to be involved with getting to work with such a wonderful professional like Janet?
What does it mean to work with Janet?
Well, what does it mean to be a part of the club? What does it mean to be a part of the theater? What does theater mean to you? Why do you do it?
I do it because it's another way of expressing yourself. So I feel like theater is a great way for me to express myself. I'm very dramatic, so might as well put it to good use. So Bixler has helped me open up and see different things in a very theatric way. So I'm glad I met Bixler because there's a lot of things I didn't know before I met her. So she opened my eyes to a lot of different things in through the plays that we do and the little poetry slams that we have on campus. And without it, I don't think I'd be ignorant to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I think that's wonderful that theater has given you that opportunity, and I hope that you use this in your profession somehow. And I know you want to get involved in business, and try to use the things that you're strong at. If you're strong at presenting, do those things at your work. Sign up for those, because trust me, everybody else wouldn't be got dead giving a presentation in front of people, but you can use that to your advantage, and we should always try to follow the things that we're good at. Well, Janet, we are coming to the end of the show, but again, I want to put out one final, and along with this podcast, there will be links to more information. There will be ways you can buy your tickets. It is $3 for students, $7 for general admission, but I did want to point out one very important thing, and that is that it is free if you are attending for extra credit, which I thought was very cool. You're trying to, not that we don't try to turn all of the things in the theater into extra credit educational opportunities, but this is one that you specifically have not only shared that students, if they are coming for extra credit, get in for free. You've also taken the liberty to send out some different assignments that might be associated with this. Can you tell me about your thought process with that?
Yes. I reached out to all the professors here at Central Penn College with a flyer stating that they can share with their students that if they attend the Martin Luther King 6 Degrees of MLK, then they can get in for free if they're doing it for extra credit. And I provided for them an activity to do. The activity asks the student, when you're listening to all these different stories, which one spoke specifically to you and why? And now that you've heard all the diverse stories about how to stand up and speak out, and there's so many ways to do social justice. Some people think it's all about throwing money at the problem. Not one of these storytellers is going to talk about money. They're going to talk about actions. And there's actions that are big, which you will hear from Rachel and James Scott of Team Scott Inspire. The big action that they took in a matter of 2 years to work with the homeless youth in the community is phenomenal. But we all cannot be Rachel and James Scott. But there are little things we can do to validate every individual in our community. And when we see the human for the human that they are, that is the first step in creating fair and equitable treatment and a fair and equitable state of being for all, so that they can become the very best they can be in our bigger community of the United States. So, and it's also great for the professors to realize that these storytellers are coming from areas in the community that relate to a whole variety of the programs in which our students are studying. The 3 speakers, Marsha Curry Banks, Lamont Jones, and Chris Fitz, they're all coming from the field of criminal justice from 3 very different angles. And what our students studying criminal justice can learn from them, oh my gosh, they could be inspired to really specialize in something. And then when we hear our student, Marnie Baker, who is an evening student because she is a working mother, share her stories and struggles with health, and then her fortitude, her survivor story, which becomes a legacy of social justice. I mean, our students studying health, hearing the lifelong struggles she's had with her body and her mind just gives such a broader understanding of empathy for your patient. My point is, there is a story in this show that will speak to every student in relationship to what they are studying here at Central Penn. And it'll give them a real world view of what's going on, and that they can approach their career with a greater understanding of humanity.
Absolutely. Very well put. So, everybody, we are going to make sure that either August 16th or 17th at 7:30 p.m. that we are at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater for Stand Up Speak Out, the 6 Degrees of MLK. Brianna's going to be there helping out with the music and having wonderful songs that are accompanying these. But this is also a very serious, more serious of a tone, but also is a very excellent opportunity for learning experiences. So students, ask your professors if they're going to be offering extra credit, and professors, consider offering your students extra credit for coming.
And everyone who attends will leave inspired and full of hope, because all of the stories speak of what is being done and how we can do it too. And you'll be totally inspired by the people who are singing songs from musical theater that lead into our stories. So you're getting a whole theatrical experience, and you're getting dessert.
Yes, and there's also, I did want to mention that after the show, there is going to be about a 30-minute dessert that you can mingle. You can talk with the performers. You can grab a quick something to eat before you leave, a quick beverage. So I think that's really cool, too. Just one final, more quick hitter type things. You talked earlier about Untitled. Can you just give us when the next time that's meeting and more information in case we want to find out more about that?
Yes. So Untitled, a storytelling project, it's in its like 5th season, and it's the first storytelling project in Harrisburg. So if you've ever heard of the storytelling podcast The Moth or Risk or Snap Judgment, Caitlin Copus and her husband Jeff and Douglas Weaver back about 5 or 6 years ago decided that they wanted to start a moth-like storytelling event here in Harrisburg. So they started it, and it happens 4 times a year now. We always meet at Zero Day Brewery, which, shout out, is owned by one of our CPC alums. And it's a free event. And we have usually 8 storytellers from the community that tell a true personal story on theme. They have 8 minutes to tell their story. And Zero Day, we are not a nonprofit. We are just an organization coming together. And we make no money out of doing this. But it does cost some money too, because we have a podcast and we have a website. And so Zero Day has partnered with us, and they're able to give us a percentage of all sales the night we have our event. We usually have 60 to 80 people come out for the event, and it's really good.
Do you know when the next one is?
Oh, yes. It's the second Tuesday of October, and the theme is Glory Days. So if you have a personal true story on the theme Glory Days, you should check out Untitled on Facebook, or you could look at our website, untitledhbg.com, and there you'll be able to hear and listen to our podcast, so you can catch how other storytellers tell their stories and how the night runs. And I host it.
Second Tuesday in October is October the 9th.
It's the second Thursday.
The second Thursday in October is October the 11th.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, one final thing, and we're going to get out of here. Every term, we have you back. We're all going to go see Stand Up, Speak Out, the 6 Degrees of MLK. But you've got something big coming in the fall. Now, don't give too much away, but can you just let us know what you're expecting?
Well, I'm actually going to let Brianna tell you, because she is the one that has inspired the theme for this upcoming production.
Brianna, in 1 minute, tell me what you have coming up in the fall in the theater.
Okay, in the fall, we're having our annual student-created play, and we chose the topic to be in the middle, since, you always have to juggle with what you want and what's better for you. So, there you go.
I love it. Well, listen, we will have the both of you back, and certainly anybody else that you'd like to have down that's going to be in the middle as a promotion for that. So, well, Janet, thank you very much. Brianna, thank you very much for spending the time here with the Nightly News Podcast today, and we will do everything we can to make sure we get people to come out.
Thank you very much.
All right, so for the theater director, Janet Bixler, please make sure on August 16th and 17th you are making plans to go see the 6 Degrees of MLK. So for Janet Bixler, the theater director, and for Brianna McCoy, she's the president of the Central Penn Players and a Nightly News reporter, this is Professor Paul Miller. Stay tuned. Adrienne Thoman is going to be right up with some discussion about the August event calendar and some of the other important events that'll be coming up in August. So stay tuned.
This is Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams, and you are listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we are joined by our favorite guest. I need to get some applause, a little applause drop in the background every time you come on, because
I would love that.
You are everybody's favorite guest. And you know what? I'm just for you. I'm going to try to find that. So here, we'll pause for a round of applause for Adrienne. And so you are our favorite guest, Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman, from almost the inception of the Nightly News Podcast, have come in once a month to talk about the events calendar, the activities calendar, something that I know you pour your heart and soul into every single month. And I love the fact that every time you come in, the calendar is more and more full each and every month. So Adrienne, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Always a pleasure. Well, let's start off. Of course, we have coming up Adrienne's Featured 3, but as always, we do have another few events that we want to make sure that we are discussing. One of the most interesting things that I want to bring up is this is week 4 when this podcast is being released, and what everybody always thinks of when they think of week 4, it's time for registration. Now, just a reminder to students, our open registration, which is when you can sign up for your classes online, does take place during weeks 4, 5, and 6. Now, of course, that does not mean that you have to sign up for all of your classes in 4, 5, and 6, but those are the times when it is the most important. You certainly can sign up after that. So, Adrienne, what I wanted to talk to you about is obviously you are, very, involved with the pulse of the students. What is it about registration? Are there any questions that you're ever posed about registration or things like that maybe we can bring up right here on the podcast?
Well, I definitely think that it's important for students at this time to really connect with advisors, with faculty and staff members that are there to support them. I feel like when registration opens, even though it always happens weeks 4, 5, 6, I feel like we just got them back. Our students just came back for the term, or they're starting for the term, and I know our newbies especially are still kind of getting situated. It doesn't seem like, oh my goodness, I have to plan for fall already, but we do. And it's really important that our students are being proactive and reaching out to people to make sure they're following their roadmaps and making sure that they're taking the correct classes.
One of the things that I always try to make sure that I discuss with students, and certainly in CPC Foundations, but I've actually started doing this in all of my classes, where I take a day during week 4 and I try to meet with as many students as I possibly can and sit down with them, because I know that for some advisors it's impossible because of the number of advisees they have to meet with everybody. But also what I've found recently is sometimes students have their classes at different times than their professors. So, for example, if somebody has a 12:10 to 1:10 block off from class, their professor or advisor might have that same time. So I do want to point out a few things. Certainly, Adrienne, it's important to note that you do not have to necessarily meet with your advisor specifically every single term. In fact, in most cases, almost any faculty is okay to speak with. We can access the proper documents that we need to ensure that you're taking the right classes. But also, what you might want to do is just really anybody in your discipline is certainly knowledgeable and able to be spoken with about the classes that they need to take. It is funny, though, in my CPC Foundations class, one of the things that we do talk about is, hey, I know you guys have only been here for 3 weeks, but we do have to schedule classes. And that is just part of, unlike your hacks or your Penn States of the world, we have 4 times to register per year because we're on the quarter system. So I do want to point out that there are many, many options that you can take advantage of. For example, myself, anybody out there listening, we in the communication department we have kind of a drop-in course registration workshop, but I can also help any student. I've had business, I've had criminal justice, I've had IT students that are my advisees. So I do want students to know that it's not just necessarily their advisor they can talk to, that it's really almost any faculty member here on campus can help them.
And the registrar has these wonderful course registration workshops in the ATEC lobby that are kind of drop in when you can. As you're passing by, you can really have some support there as well.
And again, they have the access to all of the different documents they might need. A couple of times I did want to point out on these course registration workshops from the registrar's office, starting in August. So we have August the 8th, which is Wednesday. That'll be in the ATEC lobby of Summerdale from 11 to 1. Also, Wednesday, August 8th, there is a drop-in course registration session at the Lancaster Center from 4:30 to 6 p.m. We also have on Thursday, August 9th, a drop-in course registration workshop from 4 to 5, and that is online, and you can find out more information on that through your Student Central. And the final course registration drop-in workshop is August 15th in the ATEC lobby from 1 to 3. So if you first, if you're asking me, here's how I would approach this. First, talk to your advisor. See if you can get in during week 4, and often even try to get in earlier than that if you can. Because really we can see week 1. We can give you some kind of idea. So that's the first place. The second place, try to meet up with a faculty member from your field. Or really almost any faculty member here can help you. And at last resort, make sure you stop into the drop-in course registration session. And Adrienne, I bet you've heard this probably more than anybody. My biggest concern with students who do not seek out an advisor or a faculty member or one of these workshops is the potential of taking the wrong classes. Now, without being very specific, can you just give us some general feedback that you've gotten from students that might have taken the wrong class accidentally and what kind of repercussions that has for them?
Well, I think the biggest repercussion is, aside from loss of time, is loss of money. That's a class that you paid for. You paid for those 3 credits. And unfortunately, if it doesn't count toward your degree, you're still going to have to take another class. So in my eyes, education is never wasted. So you learn something in that class. But unfortunately, it's not going to help you reach your ultimate goal of graduation.
Well, and unfortunately, from a financial aid perspective, if a student is taking financial aid and they are taking classes or dropping classes, taking classes they don't need, there's a potential they might run out of money. And I've heard that a lot from students coming into their senior year saying, I'm out of financial aid because I had to drop this class or I took a class I didn't need. So really your advisors, your faculty members in your field, certainly the course registration workshops that's run by the registration department, records and registration, so important to make sure that you're taking the right classes. And what's even more important is to get them scheduled prior to week 6, because week 6 is when we start trying to evaluate what classes are going to run and what classes don't.
Right. And that, not unfortunately, but it's just the way it is, those decisions are made based on who registered during weeks 4, 5, and 6. So if you want your class to run, if you want to make sure that you have the best possible availability, register, get it done, so that way those classes that we need will run.
And something else that I suggested for our on-ground students is to take a night class maybe. One of the things that I've really suggested is if you're taking 3 or 4 classes, if you take a night class, that's really going to open up your schedule during the day, and you can take some other classes there as well. So just thinking maybe a little bit differently, especially if you have a couple of classes. We're running classes in blocks now. I know you're teaching a block class right now.
Which I actually like.
It is really cool. It is problematic, though, when it comes to scheduling, because that block, even though 2 days a week, that covers 2 hours, and they can't take a class during that time slot. So if you are in that situation, consider taking a night class. They are blended, so the classes are only 3 hours. I've actually suggested a lot of students do that, and I think a lot of students really like it. So, all right, well, please make sure that you are being proactive with your scheduling, and if you need, certainly check in with your advisor or other faculty members in your field, or stop in the records and registration course registration workshops on Wednesday the 8th, the 9th, or the 15th. Well, Adrienne, one of the other things that I wanted to chat with you about is you have some very unique opportunities coming up on Mondays for some trips. And I'd like you to share whatever you would like about the following trips. On Monday the 6th, you're headed to the beach. On Monday the 13th, Hershey Park, so long as the flooding recedes.
Oh my goodness, this rain and the flooding, awful.
And also Lake Tobias on Monday the 20th. So would you like to share a little bit more about those 3 Monday events?
Sure. Well, I love taking advantage of our Mondays not having class. So why not go somewhere fun? It's a great day for a field trip to get off campus and check out something new. We are going on August the 6th back to Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Beautiful beach. There's a beach, a boardwalk, everything that you need, for a day on the beach. We get up super early in the morning and drive down for the day and just enjoy the sand and the sun, and then we come home that night. A lot of fun. It's actually a free trip for our students, and I, pay for their way onto the beach. Well, Student Activities Office pays for their way onto the beach, and usually we take an ice cream break at some point during the day, but I don't know, sand and sun is good for the soul, so...
If it's nice out, of course, which it will be.
It will be.
Of course.
So that's the first trip. The following week, we are doing Hershey Park. We are able to offer discounted tickets to our students. It's just $20.
That's crazy because
the Student Activities Office is sponsoring the rest. So
I think face value this year is over. I want to say it's over $70 to go to Hershey Park. Which, and I'll tell you, local individuals here, if you live locally, I've got a really cheap way outside of the $20 to twice a year. The Hershey Bears offer a Hershey Park Pass night. Now these tickets go very quick, so if you can find them, you got to buy them early. But it's even the good seats are like $22, so you get to go to a Bears game and you get a free ticket to Hershey Park.
Oh, which is cheap for Hershey Park tickets.
We do that every single year. That's how we always get our Hershey Park tickets. So, but still, that being said, Adrienne, $20 for a Hershey Park ticket is unbelievable. You're never going to do better than that.
Well, so we have those available, and actually the tickets, the deal that we have with Hershey Park, we're actually able to also offer students the opportunity to purchase tickets for friends, family, faculty, staff, if anybody want to get tickets as well. The student rate is $20, but for faculty, staff, anybody in the community, family members, guests, it's $39.50.
I mean, that's still a deep discount over what it typically is to get into Hershey Park.
Yeah, and then the final trip is we are going to Lake Tobias on August the 20th. This was actually the place of my first part-time job.
Really?
Oh, I love it. I worked in the petting zoo, and I got to feed the donkey all day. It was the best job ever. I loved it.
That's awesome.
So
I
we
love it
take
there.
students, and we ride the safari tour, which is the big bus with the top cut off of it, and sometimes the animals even try to like get on the bus. We feed them popcorn, and love it. It's one of my favorite. It's always good memories from when I was younger too.
So 3 big trips. Again, you can register for all of these online, but if you need more information, you can always email Adrienne Thoman at centralpenn.edu. For the beach trip on Monday, August 6th, the Hershey Park trip, only $20 for students. That will be Monday, August the 13th, and the trip to Lake Tobias on Monday, August 20th. So some excellent things, excellent trips coming up in the next few weeks through the Student Activities Department. Okay. So we have come to this time in our episode that is our absolute favorite segment that we do on the Nightly News Podcast, and that is Adrienne's Featured 3. I'm telling you, I'm going to find an applause.
We need a noise.
I'm going to find an applause, and it's going to be in here every single time that we do that, because I can't just say everybody's favorite segment. We'll get a little applause going on in the background. So, Adrienne, you've got a ton of really, really cool things in addition to what we've already talked about. So let's start with event number 1.
Okay, so number 1 is going to be the 2nd annual Men's Leadership Retreat. We've done this every year with our ladies for a while, and we want to give an opportunity for our gentlemen here on campus as well to get some leadership training. We're taking them to Camp Hebron. It's a one night, 2-day trip on August 10th to 11th. They were going to do high ropes, but I just had a conversation. They may do rock climbing, depending, because they had some issues with the flooding and the rain. So there's a chance that we won't be able to do the high ropes, but fingers crossed we will. They're going to do some hiking and have some speakers. Curtis Volker is going to be the main facilitator of the trip. It's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for our guys to get together, be in nature, be outside, and help to develop themselves as leaders as well.
Curtis actually invited me to be a part of this, and I am going to be a part of it on the Friday evening.
Yes, I was hoping you would.
I'm going to be going up. Unfortunately, it just so figures every single time something's going on. I have things going on Saturday. I'm going to a wedding that weekend. But I will be at least going up Friday night, and I'm going to be participating in whatever way I can, because I really think that not only is this a wonderful opportunity for our students, but I actually had a chance to talk with a few of the guys that went last year, and it was something that they're always going to remember. And it's something that I think for at least a couple of the students, I saw a noted improvement in just their overall general demeanor, even in the classroom. It was really quite profound how wonderful this was, how wonderful of an event this was. And honestly, any opportunity to spend time with Curtis, we just had Curtis on earlier in the day I recorded with him a future podcast, and I'll tell you what, his attitude is infectious. I mean, it is impossible to spend any length of time around Curtis and not, take something very positive away. He's just so motivated, and he wants the best for these young men, and I'm happy that I can, at least in some small way, have a part of it. So more information about the men's retreat, I'm sure you can certainly direct them to the right way, but you also can always reach out to Curtis as well, and he would have more information about what that would entail. All right, what is our second event on Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of August?
So the second, I kind of want to do a dual mention of the amazing community service options that we have happening here at the college. As you may or may not be aware, I know you're aware, our students are required to do community service hours as a kind of condition for graduation. So our associate degree students, 25 hours, our bachelor's degree students, 50. We have some really cool opportunities for our students to do community service hours here at the college, and 2 of them I thought were super fun. Our Rotaract Club, a great group of students, they are going to be heading to the Central PA Food Bank on August the 9th. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure that they would be happy not only to have you join them that day, but Rotaract is very consistent with their service opportunities that they do throughout the term as well. We also have a group. It's being led by a group of RAs, but we are going to do. We have therapy dogs coming again to visit, and we always make them little treatsies that we can give them kind of as a thank you for coming to campus. So on August the 14th, we are going to be making some treats for those therapy dogs that'll be visiting the following day.
I just want to share a little bit of some firsthand experience I have with the community service hours. I think it's wonderful. Let's just start there. In fact, that's part of the reason that I've always said that I've really gravitated towards Central Penn, not only just their commitment to internship and their commitment to community service, but we are guaranteeing that when our students leave here, at a minimum, they've got some type of experience, both in the nonprofit sector and potentially in the for-profit sector, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But they're leaving here with experience, which I think is very unique because not all colleges require internships, and certainly not all colleges require community service. That being said, one of the things I've noticed, I am in charge at this point of the interns that come out of the comm department, and one of the things that I see a lot is that a lot of people wait until the last minute to get their community service done. And one of the things that I consistently and constantly say to my CPC Foundations classes, get this done in your first couple of terms. You can, because we do use a form that needs to be signed, and that form can get lost. I've heard students say that they've lost it and they lost their signatures. Well, one of the things that I can tell you is Kristen Fike has already told me that any student who is completed with their community service hours, they can have it scanned, added directly to their file, and then never have to worry about it again. Now,
which is a smart thing to do.
Very smart. Now they should still continue volunteering in the community just out of the goodness of their heart. It looks great on resumes, but that is one thing that you can get done. And again, I see it happen all the time. I've seen students not be able to graduate because they just kind of blew it off and didn't do it. So it is very important. But the best thing about this, Adrienne, you offer plenty of opportunities on campus or with provided transportation, because I do know a lot of students don't have the transportation here. So even if that's a situation that you find yourself in, that you don't have transportation, Adrienne, I know you can get them the hours.
Absolutely. And I would always encourage students, if you get involved in our student clubs and organizations, they do a ton of service, a ton. It really, it will, the students that are involved, they finish. I've had, I think of our SGA president and the officers there. I've heard them say a couple times, yeah, I got all my hours my first couple terms, because they do so much just through the work of the club. So then they get it done, but and of course they still continue to do things because they're so involved in the school. But
that's fantastic. So, like I said, if you ever, in a general sense, if you ever need volunteer hours, community service hours, you can always reach out to Adrienne. But there are two excellent opportunities between the August 9th Rotaract trip to the food bank, and your second occasion for community service hours would be Tuesday the 14th, making the treats for the therapy dog. So if you are looking for community service or just want to get it out of the way, you can always reach out to Adrienne. She can always keep you busy with community service hours. All right, Adrienne, one final event that you'd like to talk about on Adrienne's Featured 3.
Okay, our Activities Advisory Board has been hard at work. They bring some of our larger regional performers to campus, and we have two that are I think going to be super awesome, scheduled for the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. On August 22nd, they're going to bring the Free Daps here, and they do kind of this improv freestyle show that's so fun. Like, they randomly had, they brought up people to the stage, and they all had, contributed, one word to their story, and then they freestyled this awesome, rap to these words. And they were the randomest words. You thought there's no way they're going to be able to do it, but it was super fun and funny and entertaining. And then the audience gets to be a part of that, by helping to give them ideas and input. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a free show. Everybody's welcome. So don't miss that on the 22nd. And then I'm just going to put a plug in for their other show that they have in August. On August 30th, AAB is bringing comedian Mike Paramore. And he's a funny guy. It is a college age or older show, so it's not, I wouldn't say family friendly. It's going to be college age or older. It's going to be a great night. Again, free for everybody. And yeah, come out and support.
AAB doing great things, bringing some excellent shows here to campus. So I just want to do a quick recap, and then I want to close the show talking about the conference that you just got back from. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to recap some of the major events that we talked about coming up in August. Number one, first thing we talked about is we are in the middle of course registration. In early August, there will be several drop-in course registration workshops held by our Records and Registration Department. Those will be Wednesday, August the 8th from 11 to 1 in the ATEC lobby. There will also be a Lancaster session on Wednesday, August the 8th from 4:30 to 6. There will be an online session, which can be done via Blackboard Collaborate or there's other ways that you can tune in, and that will be from 4 to 5 on August 9th. There's also one final one during week number 6, which will take place on Wednesday, August the 15th from 1 to 3. Adrienne also has 3 amazing opportunities for our students to travel with the school. And Monday, August 6th, there will be a trip to the beach. On Monday, August the 13th, a $20 trip to Hershey Park, and you also can get tickets for your friends at a highly discounted rate. And finally, on August the 20th, Lake Tobias. So any more information about those, you can always reach out to Adrienne. Adrienne's featured 3 includes Friday, August 10th and August 11th, the Men's Leadership Retreat. The AAB presenting 2 different shows. You have the Freed Apps, as you mentioned, on Wednesday, August the 22nd, and comedian Mike Paramore on Thursday, the 30th of August. And, of course, the other opportunities that you have for community service, both here on campus and off campus, when Rotaract visits the food bank. That will be on Thursday, August 9th, and help make treats for the therapy dogs on Tuesday, August 14th. Again, any of these things, from further information, you will see in Student Central, or you can always reach out to Adrienne Thoman at centralpenn.edu. Before we get out of here, Adrienne, I really wanted to talk about, last time we had you on the show, you had mentioned this. So you just got back from taking the SGA to New York City to attend a leadership conference. So can you just tell us a little bit about how that went and maybe what some of the takeaways were?
Well, it was amazing, exhausting, but amazing, because we ended up picked them up here at 4 a.m. for a long train ride into the city. And then we had a full day of conferences and saw a show that night, and then another day of conference. Then we caught the train back. So it was super busy, but incredibly beneficial. I know that our students, I went with our residence life director, Lindsay Garber, as well as the four SGA members, and they had a student track that they went to where they learned leadership skills and engagement and programming ideas, and they had their own track. And then Lindsay and I went to the advisor track, which amazing. We talked about Gen Z and the specific concerns of Gen Z. I did not realize this, but this generation, our generation that's here now, they are known to be the most anxiety-ridden generation.
Fear of missing out, thanks to social media. I think that there is a lot to be said about the anxiety that does come with being a teen or young adult in this day and age, for sure, that we didn't have to deal with.
Absolutely. And it definitely speaks to how we as student affairs professionals have to adapt what we're doing to support them and make sure that they have the resources that they need. There was a wonderful speaker that also talked about just knowing and loving the students that you have. You know, not being like, oh, I wish our students were this way or that way. Not that we do that, because I love our students, but to just really understand, love your students for who they are and understand who they are and program for them. And I love that idea. I think of the program, and it has actually inspired me to take a look at the calendar and say, okay, this worked last time, but is this really the best fit for our students right now? What else could we do, or what population are we missing? So it was really, really good. Well,
that's fantastic. I'm glad you had the opportunity to do that. I've always taken a lot away from conferences that I've gone to. The problem with so many of the conferences, they're just so expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't even really make financial sense in a lot of cases, because a lot of the stuff is available online too. But I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to take the students, and it's obvious that both you and Lindsay and the team of SGA got a lot out of it. And you should be so proud of them with what they're doing with the food pantry. And we just had them on recently. We had Isaiah and Morgan on, and I think it's really going to have a lasting impact here. So
our students are rock stars. They really are.
Well, with an advocate like you, it's hard for them not to be. All right. Well, Adrienne, it seems that we're coming to the end of another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I just want to thank you very much for taking time out to come down and chat with us about what's going on in August.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And I promise when you listen to this in post, you're going to have some applause in there. So
nice.
So I think can't wait. Like that. All right. Well, for Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we will catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.